The grand silver ship of the Elari, Star of Grace, entered Earth's orbit like a glowing feather drifting through the night sky. Ambassador Lyra stood near the wide glass window of the command deck, her long blue robe reflecting the stars. Her bright lavender eyes studied the blue planet below with calm curiosity. To her, Earth looked peaceful, too peaceful. Lyra's people, the Elari, were known for their grace and logic. They had seen many young species rise and fall in the galaxy. When humanity appeared on the interstellar map only a few decades ago, most Elari scholars had laughed softly. They are dreamers, they said. Poets with technology. They will not last in a galaxy built on strength. But Lyra had insisted otherwise. She believed that maybe, just maybe, humanity's gentle nature could bring something new, a sense of harmony the galaxy had long forgotten. As the shuttle descended toward Earth's shining capital city of New Geneva, Lyra watched the landscape unfold. Green fields, wide oceans, towers of glass and silver. Lights blinked softly like stars scattered on the ground. She smiled faintly. "This is a beautiful world," she whispered. Her assistant, a young Elari named Wren, nodded beside her. "Beautiful, yes. But fragile?" Lyra tilted her head. "Perhaps beauty and strength can exist together," she replied calmly. "Let us see what humanity has learned." The shuttle landed on a wide landing platform surrounded by flags from many worlds. Humans waited there, leaders, soldiers, and citizens. Their clothes were simple but elegant, their faces open and warm. Lyra felt a sense of peace as she stepped out, her silvery boots touching Earth's soil for the first time. A tall human with kind eyes approached her. "Ambassador Lyra," he said with a deep voice. "Welcome to Earth. I am Chancellor Reed. It is an honor to meet our first Elari guest." Lyra bowed slightly. "The honor is mine, Chancellor. I come to bring friendship and understanding." Reed smiled, a true human smile full of warmth. "Then we already have something in common." They led her through shining halls filled with art, music, and laughter. Everywhere she looked, humans greeted her with curiosity, not fear. Children waved from balconies. Musicians played soft melodies that touched her heart. The air was filled with a kind of joy she had rarely seen on other worlds. As they entered the Great Hall of Nations, Lyra saw banners of peace written in hundreds of languages. The human council stood around a long table offering her food, gifts, and stories. They spoke not of conquest, but of cooperation, of building bridges, not walls. That night, during the official welcoming dinner, Lyra sat beside Chancellor Reed, listening to human poets recite verses about the stars. One of them, a young woman, said, "We learn to look up not to escape our world, but to understand it." Lyra clapped softly, genuinely moved. Later, as the stars shone above the city dome, she turned to Wren and said, "I think we have found something rare. Wren, a race that values peace above power. Maybe the galaxy has something to learn from them." Wren, always cautious, gave a small nod. "Maybe. But peace without strength is fragile. We should watch carefully before we decide." Lyra smiled. Ever the skeptic. "Do not worry. I will watch." The next morning, Lyra began her tour of human culture. The first stop was the Museum of Earth's History. It was a vast building shaped like a spiral, each level showing a chapter of humanity's journey, from stone tools to space travel. Lyra was impressed by their progress. Humans had advanced quickly, faster than most species. Yet what fascinated her most was not their machines, but their emotions. Their art showed love, fear, courage, and hope. Their music carried feelings she could not explain in Elari language. Still, something puzzled her. Many exhibits spoke of wars. There were pictures of soldiers, machines, and ruins. She saw memorials covered in names, millions of them. Her guide, a middle-aged man named Dr. Hayes, noticed her expression. "We have not always been peaceful," he said quietly. "Our history is full of conflict. But we learned. Each war taught us something, what we should never repeat." Lyra frowned softly. "So your peace is new?" Hayes nodded. "Hard-earned. Humanity stands in peace today not because we forgot how to fight, but because we finally understood why we shouldn't." His words stayed with her for the rest of the day. That evening, Lyra attended a meeting at the United Earth Council. Leaders from every continent gathered under a single banner, a shining blue globe surrounded by olive branches. She watched as humans discussed trade, science, and alliances. No one shouted. No one fought. Every decision was made by vote and reason. When it was her turn to speak, Lyra stood and said, "My people are impressed by your harmony. You have achieved unity where many fail. Perhaps the galaxy can learn from you." The council members smiled proudly. But then a tall woman in a dark uniform, a military officer, stood up. Her tone was respectful but firm. "Ambassador, with respect," she said, "peace is never permanent. The galaxy is large and not everyone shares our values. That is why we keep our defense forces ready." Lyra blinked in surprise. "Do you truly believe war could still reach you?" The officer nodded. "We hope it won't, but hope is not a shield." Her words were calm, but they carried weight. Lyra dismissed them politely, thinking it was only human caution. After the meeting, she returned to her quarters overlooking the ocean. The waves below shimmered under the moonlight. She wrote her first report to the Alari High Council. Humans are gentle. Their unity and culture show emotional depth rarely seen among developing species. I believe they can guide the galaxy toward peace. Though they keep armies, they seem reluctant to use them. Perhaps one day war will truly be forgotten on this world. She sealed the report and looked out again at the endless sea. "A peaceful race," she whispered. "How strange and beautiful." But far above the calm oceans, in the silent blackness of space, a fleet of unknown ships slipped past the outer colonies of human space. Their hulls were sharp and dark, marked with red symbols that even the bravest explorers feared. The Dravak Dominion had arrived. They were a powerful empire known across the stars for their conquests. They did not negotiate, they did not show mercy, and their path now pointed directly toward Earth. Down below, unaware of the danger growing in the dark, Ambassador Lyra stood on her balcony, admiring the stars. She smiled softly and said to herself, "Perhaps peace truly can last forever." But in the quiet sky above, the stars seemed to flicker, not with peace, but with warning. The calm before the storm had begun. The morning sun rose over the city of New Geneva, painting the glass towers in gold. Ambassador Lyra stood by her window watching airships move quietly across the sky. It was peaceful, just as it had been every day since she arrived. Yet something about that morning felt different. Her communicator blinked softly, a message from the Earth Council. "Ambassador Lyra," said the gentle voice of Chancellor Reed. "Today we invite you to visit our Museum of Memory. It is an important part of understanding who we are as a people." Lyra smiled. I would be honored. She had already seen so much of human beauty, music, art, and kindness. But this new visit sounded deeper, more personal. She wondered what kind of memories humans treasured most. The museum was built on a hill overlooking the ocean. Its walls were made of pale stone and its design was simple. No bright colors, no grand banners. As Lyra entered with her aide Wren and a human guide, she felt the air grow quieter. Even the usual sound of city life faded behind thick glass doors. Inside, the light was dim. The first room showed images of early human life, villages, farms, and inventions. Lyra smiled softly as she walked among the displays. But when she reached the next hall, her steps slowed. There were no more smiles on the walls, only faces covered in dust and eyes filled with determination. Soldiers, civilians, families, frozen in moments of struggle. "This section," said the guide, "is about our wars." Lyra turned to him in surprise. "Wars? I thought your people had outgrown such things." The man gave a gentle, sad smile. "We have not forgotten them. We cannot forget. It is part of who we are." The guide led her through the long hallway. Holographic displays came to life as they walked. Lyra saw ancient battles fought with swords and shields, followed by tanks and aircraft, and finally starships crossing the void. Each war had its reason, sometimes for survival, sometimes for power, and sometimes for freedom. One display showed a soldier standing in front of a ruined city, his face tired but calm. His uniform was torn, and in his hand he held a flag, half burned yet still raised high. "Who was he?" Lyra asked quietly. "A common soldier," replied the guide. "No one remembers his name. But his image became a symbol of hope during the last World War. We lost much, but his picture reminded people that even when everything burns, we can still stand." Lyra looked at the hologram for a long moment. "Your people have suffered greatly," she said softly. "Yes," the guide said. "But we learned. That is why we treasure peace now. It was bought with pain, and we do not wish to pay that price again. Ren, standing beside her, frowned slightly. So peace is not your nature, it is your decision? The guide nodded. Yes, we are not peaceful because we are weak. We are peaceful because we understand the cost of war. Later they entered a large circular chamber, the Hall of the Fallen. The ceiling was open to the sky, letting sunlight stream down on rows of names engraved into stone. The names stretched for hundreds of meters, millions of them. Lyra stopped at the entrance, overwhelmed. All of these are your dead? The guide bowed his head. Everyone, from every nation, every side, every age. For a long time, no one spoke. The sound of distant waves reached faintly through the opening above. Lyra finally said, Your people remember even those who fought against you? We must, said the guide. If we forget them, we forget the lessons they taught us. Lyra touched one of the engraved names. The letters were smooth beneath her fingers. You honor your past with honesty, she said. That is rare among the stars. The guide smiled faintly. We try. We are not perfect, but we remember. That evening, back in her room, Lyra could not rest. She looked at the city lights outside, remembering the silent hall filled with names. Her heart felt heavier now. She recorded her thoughts in her log. Humans speak of peace, yet they live in the shadow of war. Their calmness is not innocence, it is wisdom built from suffering. I begin to understand their depth. There is strength in their restraint. Ren entered quietly. You are thinking of the museum, he said. Lyra nodded. Yes, I once believed peace was natural to them. But now I see it is a choice they renew every day. Ren hesitated. Do you think they could fight again if they had to? Lyra gave a small smile. Perhaps, but I hope they never must. A few days later, Lyra was invited to attend a meeting of the Human Defense Council, a branch of government that handled planetary security. She accepted out of curiosity, though she doubted there would be much to see. The meeting took place in a command center deep beneath the city. Screens covered the walls showing maps of space, colonies, and trade routes. Soldiers and officers worked silently at their stations. When Lyra entered, all eyes turned to her. The humans stood respectfully, and the leading officer, a man with sharp eyes and calm posture, approached her. I am Commander Aaron Holt, he said. His voice was even and confident. Welcome, Ambassador. Lyra studied him. Unlike most humans she had met, Holt's expression was unreadable. There was strength in his quiet tone, like a mountain that did not need to shout to show its size. Commander Holt, she greeted. I did not expect to meet a soldier on this visit. He smiled faintly. I did not expect to meet an Alari diplomat either. The galaxy is full of surprises. Lyra looked around. Your people still maintain a military, even after achieving peace? Holt nodded. We do. Peace is fragile. It must be protected. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Do you not fear that keeping such weapons invites war? Only if we forget why we built them, he replied. They are tools, not desires. We train not because we want war, but because one day someone else might. His words were calm, but they carried quiet power. Lyra could see that this man had seen things she could not imagine. Suddenly, a soft alarm echoed through the hall. Officers rushed to their stations, screens filling with red lights. Holt turned sharply. What is it? He asked. Unknown fleet entering the outer sector, said one officer. No response to hails. Pattern matches the Dravak Dominion. The room went silent. Even Lyra felt her heart freeze. The Dravak Dominion, she knew that name. A race of conquerors feared across the stars. Holt spoke again, calm but firm. Alert all defense stations. Prepare to move the orbital fleets. Lyra stepped forward. Commander, perhaps they are only passing through. He shook his head. Dravak ships don't pass through. They take. Chancellor Reed's face appeared on the main screen. Commander, we must confirm their intent. Do not engage unless attacked. Holt saluted. Understood, sir. But if they come closer, we will be ready. Hours later, Lyra returned to her quarters, unable to think of anything else. She watched the stars from her balcony, but now they felt different, darker, less friendly. Ren joined her, worry in his eyes. Do you think the humans will fight? Lyra sighed. I do not know, but I saw something in Commander Holt's eyes. He will not let his people fall easily. She looked again at the peaceful city below, the shining towers, the laughter of people walking in the streets. They love peace, she whispered, but I think they understand what it costs to keep it. Above the quiet planet far beyond human eyes, the Dravak ships continued their silent approach like a storm forming beyond the horizon, and somewhere deep inside her, Lyra felt the first spark of fear. Not for humanity's safety, but for the enemies who would soon discover what humans truly were. The night was calm over New Geneva, but deep beneath the surface, the command center buzzed with silent urgency. Alarms were muted, screens filled with moving red dots, each one marking a Dravak ship entering human space. Ambassador Lyra stood near a large window, watching the holographic projection of the outer system. She could see the red dots multiplying, forming a dark swarm. The room was filled with human officers, each focused, quick, and strangely calm. Commander Aaron Holt stood at the center, surrounded by light and data streams. His posture was steady, his eyes sharp but calm. To Lyra, he looked like a man who had seen storms before and never once bowed to them. "How many ships?" Holt asked quietly. 200 confirmed, sir," replied a young officer, more arriving from the edge of the sector. "Their formation is tight and directed toward our colonies." "Any communication?" Holt asked. "None. Only encrypted signals between their own vessels." Holt's jaw tightened. "Then we must assume invasion." Lyra stepped forward. "Commander, the Dravak are known for conquest, but perhaps this time they only seek a border test." "Maybe diplomacy." Holt turned to her. His voice remained calm, but his eyes carried the weight of experience. "Ambassador, when a wolf circles your home, you don't wait for it to knock politely." Lyra fell silent. She had no answer. Hours later, Holt stood in the war room with his senior staff. The holographic map displayed Earth, its moons, and several colonies spread across the system. The Dravak fleet was closing in on one of the farthest human outposts, Epsilon Station. "We need to hold them at Epsilon," Holt said. "If they take it, the colonies will fall one by one." An admiral frowned. "Their fleet outnumbers ours 4-1. Even with orbital defenses, we can't win a direct fight." Holt nodded slowly. "Then we won't fight a direct war. We'll fight a human one." Lyra watched curiously from the side of the room as the officers leaned forward, listening. Holt spoke with quiet strength, outlining his plan with precision and confidence. He didn't talk about destruction. He talked about timing, movement, and unity. He ordered smaller ships to move like shadows through asteroid belts, to strike fast and vanish. He called it the mirror strategy. Let the enemy see reflections of strength everywhere until they lost their balance. Lyra whispered to Ren, "He plans to use confusion as a weapon." Ren nodded. "It is clever. Dangerous, but clever." Holt noticed her watching and gave a small nod. "Ambassador, your people value strategy, yes?" Lyra replied carefully. "Yes, but we also value caution." "Then you'll understand," Holt said. "Peace requires strength. Strength requires readiness." He turned to his officers. "Launch the Valiant Dawn and the surrounding fleet. I'll take command there myself." Lyra stepped forward in surprise. "You personally? You are a commander. Is it not dangerous?" Holt smiled faintly. "Every leader should know the risks of the orders they give." Within hours, the human fleet rose from Earth's orbit like silver arrows piercing the dark. The flagship Valiant Dawn led the formation, its hull gleaming under the sun's edge. From the observation deck of her Elari vessel, Lyra watched in silence. She had seen Elari warships, smooth, graceful, designed to intimidate with elegance. But human ships were different. They were practical, built like shields and spears rather than jewels. They carried purpose in every line. Ren stood beside her, scanning the distant ships. "They are not the most advanced," he said, "but they move with unity." Like a single thought, Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, and look at them. Each one willing to fly into danger without hesitation." She felt something stir inside her chest, something unfamiliar. Pride? Admiration? She couldn't tell. The fleet reached Epsilon Station 2 days later. The station floated near the rings of a gas giant, shining like a lonely beacon. Civilians had already been evacuated, but the station's defense system still waited for command. When the human fleet arrived, the Dravak were already there, massive black ships shaped like blades, their engines glowing red. Holt stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, surrounded by officers. "Signal them," he said. Standard hail. A moment later, the communication screen came alive with static, then cleared. The image of a Dravak warlord appeared, a tall, scaled being with cold golden eyes. "This is Commander Holt of Earth," Holt said firmly. "You are entering human territory. Withdraw immediately." The Dravak warlord laughed, a low, chilling sound. "We have no interest in peace, only in testing your strength." Holt's eyes did not waver. "Then you'll find more than you expected." The screen went dark. Lyra, observing from her ship, felt her pulse quicken. The first human fleet in generations was about to face the galaxy's most feared warriors. "Commander Holt is calm," she said softly to Ren. "But can calm win against monsters?" Ren didn't answer. The battle began. The Dravak attacked first. Their ships moved like predators, firing streams of plasma that lit up the darkness. Human ships broke formation, but not in retreat. They scattered, each one vanishing behind asteroids or diving into planetary rings. The Dravak tried to follow, but their large ships struggled to maneuver. Suddenly, human cruisers appeared from behind debris, launching precise counterattacks before disappearing again. Lyra gasped. "They're not running. They're dancing." Holt's voice echoed through command channels. "Pattern 3, move on my mark." Every ship followed instantly, no hesitation, no confusion. When Holt gave the signal, the Valiant Dawn charged forward, leading a group of smaller ships into the Dravak center. Explosions flashed across the void as human torpedoes struck enemy shields. The Dravak roared back, but the humans adapted faster, changing angles, cutting power to appear invisible to scanners, then reappearing behind the enemy. On the Aelari ship, Lyra could hardly believe what she was seeing. Humans were not the calm poets she had thought. They were warriors of instinct, using intelligence and courage in equal measure, Ren whispered. "They fight with their minds as much as their weapons." "Yes," Lyra said softly. "And with their hearts." The battle lasted for hours. Both sides lost ships, but humans fought with unmatched unity. Even when the Valiant Dawn was struck and its shields flickered, Holt refused to fall back. "Target their command ship," he ordered. "All batteries fire." The crew obeyed without question. Lyra could see them through the broadcast feed. Tired faces, focused eyes, not one of them showing fear. When the Dravak flagship exploded in a burst of light, the remaining enemy ships faltered. Some turned to flee, others hesitated just long enough for human forces to press the attack. Moments later, silence filled the comms. The Dravak fleet was retreating. Holt exhaled slowly and looked out the window. "Epsilon station is safe," he said quietly. "Signal all ships, begin rescue operations." The bridge erupted in quiet cheers. No one shouted in triumph. They had won, but they carried the weight of what it had cost. From her ship, Lyra watched the smoke trails of the retreating enemy. She could still hear Holt's calm orders echoing through her mind. Ren broke the silence. "So, Ambassador, what do you think of the peaceful humans now?" Lyra didn't answer right away. She looked at the wounded ships, the flickering lights, and the humans working together to save each other. Finally, she said, "They are peaceful, yes, but not because they are weak. They are peaceful because they know what they can do if they are not." Later that night, as the human fleet began repairs, Lyra requested a meeting with Holt aboard the Valiant Dawn. He stood near a damaged window looking at the stars. His uniform was torn and a faint cut marked his cheek, but his eyes still carried calm strength. "You wanted to see me, Ambassador?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes, I wanted to understand something. You fought with such courage, yet you speak softly as if war is something you dislike." Holt smiled faintly. "I don't like it. No one should. But sometimes peace has to be defended, and when that day comes, we fight, not for glory, but for the right to live in peace again." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. For the first time, she saw humanity not as fragile dreamers, but as guardians. As she left the ship, she whispered to herself, "I thought humans were gentle, but now I see they are gentle only because they choose to be." And somewhere deep in her heart, she began to feel respect turn into something more, hope. The galaxy seemed silent after the first skirmish, but the calm was only temporary. From her observation deck on the Aelari ship, Ambassador Lyra watched the humans prepare for the next stage. The Dravak Dominion had retreated, but only for now. Their numbers were overwhelming, and Lyra knew they would return stronger. Yet what astonished her most was not the enemy. It was the humans themselves. They did not cower. They did not despair. Even in the face of unimaginable danger, their determination shone like sunlight through a storm. Commander Holt walked among his fleet with quiet confidence. He checked each ship personally, spoke with officers, and encouraged soldiers with words that carried authority and warmth at the same time. Lyra observed him from afar, unable to tear her eyes from the scene. She had assumed humans were gentle because of their words and art, because of the way they smiled and welcomed her to their planet. But here, in the tension of war, she began to see another face of humanity, fierce, brave, and unyielding. The Dravak returned 2 days later, their fleet larger than before, stretching across the void like a dark river. Red engines glowed against the blackness of space. Every human fleet commander knew this would be the decisive battle. "Ambassador, the humans will defend their system with all they have," Ren whispered. Lyra nodded silently. She had learned enough to know that this was no ordinary defense. Humans were not simply fighting to repel invaders. They were fighting to protect their homes, their families, their very way of life. Holt's voice came over the comms. "Calm, firm, precise. All ships hold formation. Follow pattern Delta 5. Watch each other's backs. Trust your training. Trust each other." Even the youngest pilots, some barely adults, moved with discipline that belied their years. Lyra felt her heart tighten. Humans were not reckless, they were resolute. The battle began with a series of fast, sudden strikes. Dravak ships, confident in their overwhelming numbers, attempted to break human lines. They underestimated the humans' coordination, their creativity in combat, and their willingness to risk everything for their people. Lyra could hardly believe what she saw. Humans did not merely respond to attacks, they anticipated them. Ships darted like living things, weaving through debris fields, disappearing behind moons and asteroids, only to reappear at the enemy's flank. Holt's flagship, the Valiant Dawn, led the center. Even when hit, the crew adapted instantly. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, but no one panicked. They repaired systems mid-battle, moved weapons manually, and still fought with precision. Lyra whispered to Ren, "I assumed they would avoid confrontation, but they embrace it when necessary." Ren nodded. "It is courage born from understanding, not recklessness." The Dravak flagship emerged from the rear of the enemy line, a massive ship bristling with weapons. Its captain, a towering figure of cold logic, directed fire at the Valiant Dawn. Holt's eyes narrowed, but his expression remained calm. "Target their energy arrays," he ordered. "Focus fire on their engines. Disable them without destroying the ship." Lyra tilted her head. "Why not destroy it? That would be simpler." Holt's voice came over the comm. "Because we do not fight for hatred. We fight for life. Our strength is tempered by our values. Victory is meaningless if it sacrifices who we are." She felt a warmth in her chest at his words. Humans were capable of great power, but they chose restraint. That restraint, she realized, was far more difficult than any battle. Hours passed and the battle escalated. Smaller human ships performed daring maneuvers, striking Dravak vessels at points no one would expect. Some ships disappeared entirely, only to appear behind enemy lines, striking with surgical precision. Lyra saw countless acts of bravery. Pilots guided damaged ships to safety while continuing to fire at the enemy. Crew members repaired critical systems even as alarms blared and sparks flew. In one small skirmish, a young soldier sacrificed his ship to redirect an incoming weapon away from a civilian station. She gasped. "Such courage, such selflessness," she whispered. Ren placed a hand on her shoulder. "It is not recklessness. They fight because they value others more than themselves." Lyra nodded slowly. She began to understand something profound. Humans were not peaceful because they were weak. They were peaceful because they had learned what it meant to fight and what it cost to destroy. By the third day of battle, the humans had begun to turn the tide. Dravak formations faltered under unpredictable strikes. Human ships exploited the enemy's weaknesses, moving like a single organism across the void. Even the Valiant Dawn, damaged and battered, led with precision and courage that inspired every other ship in the fleet. Lyra watched Holt issue orders calmly, even as explosions rocked the bridge. His voice carried authority without arrogance, decisiveness without cruelty. Every move he made saved lives. Every tactic preserved both victory and morality. For the first time, Lyra truly understood the saying that humans could be the galaxy's greatest warriors, not because of weapons or strength, but because of their hearts. The climax of the battle came when the Dravak flagship attempted to escape through a gravitational field near a nearby gas giant. Holt's calculations were perfect. He had predicted the maneuver and positioned human ships to block the exit. The Dravak vessel fired wildly, but humans anticipated every strike. With a coordinated attack from all directions, the flagship was disabled. Explosions flared across the void, and the remaining enemy ships, shaken and disoriented, retreated in confusion. Lyra watched the aftermath in awe. She had expected humans to be peaceful dreamers. Instead, she saw a species capable of standing against one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, and winning through courage, strategy, and unity. Ren turned to her quietly. "Do you see now why the galaxy fears them?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, the galaxy underestimates them. They are not just fighters. They are guardians, protectors of their own people, tempered with wisdom." Later, as the human fleet regrouped, Holt walked among the wounded. He offered words of encouragement, checked on crew members personally, and ensured that civilians were safe. No one was left unnoticed. Lyra followed him silently, marveling at his calm strength. He was not a leader who inspired fear or demanded loyalty. He earned respect through care, courage, and quiet determination. One young officer approached Holt, tears in her eyes. "Sir, I thought we would lose everything." Holt placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We fight together. We survive together. And even when we fall, we rise again." Lyra's heart swelled. Here was the truth of humanity. Strength was not just in weapons or tactics. Strength was in unity, in courage, in love for one's people. That evening, Lyra recorded her second report to the Alari High Council. "I assumed humans were peaceful. I was wrong. They are capable of ferocity that rivals any species we have encountered, yet they wield it only when necessary, guided by values stronger than fear or hatred. Their courage is bound by love and their strength by wisdom. I have seen one commander, Aaron Holt, lead them not only with strategy but with the heart of a true protector. Humanity's spirit is both fierce and kind. It is unlike anything in the galaxy." She paused, looking out at the calm night sky. "I do not fear for them, but I do wonder what will happen if the galaxy does not recognize their strength soon enough." As the stars shone over Earth, Lyra finally understood the paradox she had witnessed. Humans were gentle dreamers, capable of art, music, and poetry. Yet when confronted with darkness, they were unbreakable warriors. Their peace was not a sign of weakness, it was a choice, and that choice made them stronger than she had ever imagined. Somewhere deep in her chest, Lyra felt a quiet awe. Not only had she misjudged this species, but she had also seen a truth she would never forget, that courage, compassion, and unity could create a power unmatched by any weapon in the universe. And in that moment, she knew the galaxy would soon learn to fear and respect humans in equal measure. The battle had ended. The Dravak Dominion's fleet was gone, scattered across the void, leaving behind the quiet of space and the soft glow of Earth's protective fleet. Commander Aaron Holt stood aboard the Valiant Dawn, looking out at the horizon. His ship bore scars from the fight, but it still floated with dignity. Around him, crew members worked tirelessly, repairing damage and checking systems. Ambassador Lyra observed from her Alari ship. She could hardly believe what she had witnessed. Humans were no longer just gentle dreamers or peaceful diplomats in her mind. They were fierce, determined, and united. They had defended their world with intelligence, courage, and heart, and they had won. For days, Lyra had watched humanity at its best and its most desperate. Every sacrifice had been deliberate, every tactic clever. Nothing about their victory was careless. Humans had faced the greatest threat they had ever known, yet they emerged without losing their values, without succumbing to hatred or vengeance. Lyra requested a meeting with Commander Holt once the battle was over. She found him on the observation deck of the Valiant Dawn, alone except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. He looked at her quietly, eyes calm and focused. "You wanted to see me, Ambassador?" Holt asked. Lyra bowed slightly. "Yes, I wanted to understand how your people can be so gentle yet so strong, how you can fight with such determination and yet still value life above all else." Holt smiled faintly. "It is not easy. Every choice in war is weighed carefully. Every life matters. We fight because we must, not because we want to. Peace is our goal. Strength is our tool to protect it. Lyra studied him for a long moment. I assumed humans were peaceful. I thought war would break you. But instead I see a species tempered by experience, strengthened by courage, and guided by wisdom. Holt nodded. We do not wish for war. But if the galaxy seeks to challenge us, we will stand. Not for conquest, not for pride, but for our people and our way of life. Lyra felt a deep respect for him, one that went beyond admiration. Here was a man who had not only led his people to victory, but had done so without losing sight of humanity itself. In the following days, the human fleet returned to Earth, its ships bearing the scars of battle but carrying crews proud and unbroken. Civilians cheered from the orbital platforms and spaceports as ships returned. Families reunited with tears and laughter, hugging those who had fought to protect their home. Lyra watched silently. Even from afar, she could see the bond humans shared. Every victory was celebrated, every loss remembered, and yet no one became cruel or arrogant. Their strength was matched by their compassion. Ren, standing beside her, finally spoke. Ambassador, what do you think now? Are humans still peaceful? Lyra shook her head slowly. They are more than peaceful. They are vigilant, wise, and resilient. Peace is a choice they make every day, and that makes them far stronger than any weapon. Ren considered her words. Do you think the galaxy understands this? Lyra's lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. Not yet, but it will sooner or later. And when it does, they will respect humans or regret it. Ambassador Lyra returned to Earth to observe the recovery efforts. Cities were repaired, and colonies had been defended with minimal civilian casualties thanks to careful planning and coordination. She spoke with leaders, families, and even the youngest soldiers, listening to their stories. Every story shared one common truth. Humans valued each other. Every life mattered. They fought not out of anger, but out of love, courage, and responsibility. She watched children play in parks that had been rebuilt, their laughter echoing under a peaceful sky. Elderly citizens shared meals with families, telling tales of courage and survival, from the battles that had nearly taken everything from them. Lyra realized that humanity's strength did not end with the fleet or its warriors. It lived in every citizen, in every choice to protect, nurture, and rebuild. Weeks later, Lyra addressed the Alari High Council, her report ready. The chamber was quiet, filled with council members who waited for her words. She spoke slowly, choosing them with care. I came to Earth expecting a peaceful race, perhaps fragile and untested. I found something far different. Humans are gentle in their daily lives, yet fierce when they must protect what they love. They have faced threats that could destroy their world, and yet they survived without losing their values. Their courage, intelligence, and unity make them guardians of not only their planet, but of their principles. I have observed one commander, Aaron Holt, who embodies their spirit. Wise, brave, and compassionate. The galaxy has much to learn from humanity. The council members murmured in surprise. This was unlike any report they had ever received about a young species. Lyra continued. Do not mistake their smiles for weakness. Their peace is chosen, not given, and when the time comes, they will fight with all they have. They are not conquerors, they are protectors, and that is a power the galaxy cannot ignore. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep sense of clarity. She had underestimated humans. She had assumed peace meant softness. Now she understood. Humanity's strength lay in its restraint, in its love, and in its unwavering courage. Back on Earth, Commander Holt walked through the city, observing the quiet life returning. Children played on the streets, vendors sold goods in colorful markets, and citizens spoke freely in the open air. The sky was clear, the sun warm, and the world seemed to breathe with peace once more. Yet Holt knew the galaxy would not remain silent forever. There were others out there who did not share Earth's values, who would test humanity again. But he also knew something else. Humanity had learned, grown, and proven itself capable of defending its ideals without abandoning its compassion. As he passed a small park, a child ran up to him, holding a drawing of a ship flying through the stars. Thank you for protecting us, the child said. Holt smiled and knelt down. We protect because we care, and one day you will help protect too. The child's eyes sparkled with hope. Holt felt a quiet pride. This was the true victory, not just surviving the Dravak, but ensuring the next generation could live, learn, and dream under a safe sky. Ambassador Lyra visited Holt once more. Walking beside him along the quiet streets, she could hear children laughing in the distance and see citizens rebuilding with determination and care. "I assumed humans were peaceful," she said softly. "But I was wrong. Not about their gentleness, but about their strength. Peace and courage live together in this species like fire and water balancing each other." Holt nodded. "It is a hard balance to maintain, but one we must uphold. Peace is never simple, but it is always worth fighting for." Lyra smiled. "I have learned something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Humans are guardians of their world and their values. And that makes them remarkable." Holt looked at her, his expression calm. "Then perhaps the galaxy will see it too if we survive long enough to show it." Lyra glanced toward the stars, feeling awe and hope. Humanity had survived its first great test among the stars. Its people had shown strength, courage, and compassion. And the galaxy, she knew, would soon have to recognize that humans were not merely peaceful. They were guardians, unyielding and wise. Months later, Ambassador Lyra returned to her ship, ready to leave Earth's orbit. She looked down one last time at the bright planet below. Cities glimmered, rivers sparkled, and forests stretched across the continents. She thought of the young pilots, the families, the commanders, and even the children who would inherit this world. She recorded a final note for the High Council. "Humanity is a species unlike any other I have encountered. They are gentle yet strong, peaceful yet fearless. They choose to fight not for power but for protection. They embody courage, wisdom, and compassion in equal measure. The galaxy would do well to remember that under this calm, smiling exterior lives a fire that cannot be broken. The lesson of Earth is clear. Strength is not measured by conquest, but by the courage to defend what is precious, and the wisdom to do so without losing one's soul." Lyra sealed the report, her heart light yet full of respect. She would tell the Ilari that humanity was ready to face the galaxy, not with cruelty but with guardianship, courage, and hope. Above her, the stars sparkled as if acknowledging her words. Somewhere far away, the Dravak Dominion reconsidered its path, wary of the species that had repelled their might with nothing but heart, mind, and unity. And on Earth, Commander Holt walked through a quiet park, children laughing around him, the sun warm on his face. For a moment he allowed himself to relax, knowing the planet he loved was safe, for now. But he also knew that humanity would always be ready. For peace was not simply their goal, it was their strength, their duty, and their way of life. Lyra watched, smiled, and finally understood. Humans were not just a peaceful species. They were warriors of light, guardians of hope, and a force the galaxy would never forget.